working with microtones in continuum pedagogy. Microtones, intervals smaller than the Western semitone, are not an exotic specialism, but an inherent dimension of living pitch. Every sustained tone on a string or in the human voice already contains continuous microtonal motion. Vibrato itself is a controlled oscillation of fundamental frequency, typically spanning 50 to 120 cents peak to peak in classical singing and string playing. The ear perceives a center, yet the sound is never static. It breathes, leans, and returns through minute deviations that give the tone its warmth and individuality. In continuum practice, this is not a technical add-on, but a primary fact of listening. The same attention that settles an open string against a drone, noticing the moment beating gives way to calm resonance, is the attention that can explore the spaces between tempered steps. Cultural expectations around these spaces vary widely. Within much Western classical and popular training, the equal tempered semitone is treated as the default unit, and anything smaller is often heard first as deviation, expressive color, or experimental departure. In many other traditions, microtones form part of the structural vocabulary. Arabic and Turkish makam systems employ quarter tones and finer inflections as defining characteristics of melodic modes. The oud or ney is expected to produce pitches that sit deliberately between the notes of a piano. Indian raga practice works with the 22 shrutis, unequal divisions that allow subtle shades of ascent and descent, each carrying emotional and ornamental weight. Indonesian gamelan ensembles tune in ways that prioritize beating and shimmer rather than pure Western intervals. Various African traditions employ equipentatonic or equiheptatonic systems, whose step sizes fall between Western whole tones and semitones. In each case, the expectation is not that pitch will conform to a fixed grid, but that the performer will inhabit a continuum of possible placements according to mode, context, and expressive need. Digital and computational tools introduce a practical tension. Most tuners, digital audio workstations, and MIDI systems default to 12-tone equal temperament. Pitch is quantized, displayed, and corrected against that grid. A singer or string player exploring a true quarter tone or a just interval may be told by the machine that the note is simply out of tune. Algorithms trained on vast corpora of tempered music can reinforce the same bias, treating microtonal nuance as noise or instability. This can hinder the continuum ethos when tools become authorities rather than servants. Continuum places the human factor, idiosyncrasy, listening, the particular body's relationship to sound, at the summit of excellence. Rigid quantization risks flattening the very personality and relational sensitivity that the pedagogy seeks to cultivate. Yet the same tools can expand the creative field when used with awareness. Flexible software that accepts custom scales, real-time pitch bend, or alternative temperament files allows a player to explore non-tempered relationships while still benefiting from recording, visualization, or distance collaboration. Adaptive interfaces can support musicians whose physical circumstances limit conventional technique, giving them access to continuous pitch spaces that fixed frets or keys might otherwise deny. In Continuum, the hierarchy remains clear. Computation belongs in the toolkit, not at the center. When digital systems are configured to honor continuous pitch rather than enforce a single grid, they become allies of deep listening rather than obstacles to it. Because Continuum is a Western-oriented framework with roots in classical string and vocal traditions, its engagement with other cultures must remain careful and non-hierarchical. The method does not claim to teach makam or raga from the outside. Instead, it offers a complementary stance, the primacy of listening over prescription, the value of small, attentive adjustments, the permission to inhabit pitch as a living continuum rather than a set of fixed points, and the insistence that resonance and agency matter more than external correctness. These principles can support a student already working within another tradition by strengthening ear, breath, and bodily awareness without overwriting the cultural grammar of that tradition. A continuum-trained listener may bring heightened sensitivity to beating, sympathetic resonance, and micro-adjustments that enrich practice on the oud, sitar, or voice in any modal system. Collaboration becomes possible when both sides treat the encounter as mutual exploration rather than assimilation. Relevant strategies follow from the same ethos. Begin with the ear and the body rather than with theory. Use sustained drones, whether acoustic or carefully tuned digital ones, drawn from the harmonic series or from non-tempered intervals, and invite the player to find the places where the sound opens rather than where a display lights green. Treat vibrato itself as a laboratory of continuous pitch. Explore wider and narrower oscillations, slower and faster rates, noticing how each changes the emotional and physical character of the tone. When working with fixed-pitch instruments, introduce temporary retuning or prepared extensions that allow microtonal access. Encourage spoken word and free vocal exploration as a low-pressure route into pitch nuance. Since the speaking voice already moves through continuous intervals without the demand for correct notes. In group settings, prioritize collective listening and matching over simultaneous adherence to a single tempered center. Above all, protect the principle that nothing is simply not good. A pitch that sits between tempered steps is not an error, it is information. The task is to hear what it offers and to decide with agency how it belongs in the present musical field. In this way, microtones cease to be a specialized technique and become another expression of Continuum's core commitment. Music as a living relationship with sound, oriented toward the present and the emerging future, in which human presence, cultural openness, and creative listening remain the measure of excellence. From the new book, The Continuum Approach to Music, Foundations, a pedagogical framework for musical learning by Sarnia de la Mare FRSA.